Viktor Orban began Hungary's six-month presidency of the EU Council with diplomatic moves that were not welcomed by EU and NATO partners. After a trip to Kyiv, he urgently went to Moscow for a visit, which he did not discuss with either his European partners or Ukraine. Orban positioned the trip to Moscow as the next stage of the so-called peace mission, although in fact it was contrary to the EU's position of not negotiating Ukraine without Ukraine. Orban then flew to Beijing to meet with President Xi Jinping. There he praised China's role in supposedly achieving peace between Russia and Ukraine.
In this case, the most EU countries take a different position than Hungary, and those officials who sit in Brussels on a permanent basis were naturally very angry about this matter, because they had not encountered such situations when some country began quite serious movements not coordinated with them.
As a result, the European Parliament, at a plenary session on July the 17th, overwhelmingly approved a resolution in support of Ukraine in which, in particular, it condemned the uncoordinated foreign policy actions of Hungarian Prime Minister Viktor Orban. The majority of the European Parliament condemned Hungary's abuse of its presidency of the EU Council and called it to lift the blockade of funding to Ukraine from the European Peace Fund.
This is very cool news because they could also let it pass by, as happens, for example, at the UN. The EU and Europe in general should be thanked here for adequate behavior. They made it clear to Orban that he is not a subject who can afford to take such trips. Hungary takes on too much, so it really needs to be put in its place.
Lithuanian Foreign Minister Gabrielius Landsbergis does not rule out that Hungary's EU presidency could be taken away due to the Hungarian Prime Minister's uncoordinated visit to Moscow and Beijing. According to him, recently there has been a lot of dissatisfaction with Orban. Some countries are considering boycotting ministerial meetings.
There have been even various suggestions in the states that the chairmanship could be transferred to another state, taking it over from Hungary and possibly passing it to Poland, or solving it in some other way. This is one way to respond to the actions that can be taken today. Gabrielius Landsbergis, Minister for Foreign Affairs of Lithuania, Delphi reports.
Also, the second largest group in the European Parliament, Progressive Alliance of Socialists and Democrats, came out with a call to punish Viktor Orban for his visit to Moscow, as well as for his constant videos on EU decisions on Ukraine. What kind of peace does Orban want to talk about with tyrant? Orban's trip to Moscow is a violation of EU foreign policy, undermining of trust and the principle of sincere cooperation. There must be consequences for this. Orban must stop blocking EU aid to Ukraine, including funds for military assistance provided by member states. Irache Garcia Perez, leader of the Progressive Alliance of Socialists and Democrats, member of the European Parliament for Spain, on X social network. The European Commission says that they cannot legally deprive Hungary of its presidency of the EU Council, but they can boycott it. The European Commission has also already decided to reduce the level of representation at informal meetings of the EU Council during the Hungarian presidency in order to show dissatisfaction with Viktor Orban's uncoordinated foreign policy steps. Reported by Diana Kolesnik, Yulia Bil, UATV News.